this is a dream. This is a holograph. We're all in our avatars right here. This is the learning space. The heaven space, the quantum space, that is the reality. There can be a soul that crosses over and another soul can come into that body. And that can also happen from the seraphim realm. And so that death experience is registered as a near death experience or a death experience. And instead of a complete death experience, there's a swap. Animals do it all the time. The second coming, it's not a religious coming like the end of the world. It is the second coming through all of us. So as we remember that we are God inside, that is the second coming of Jesus. And it's really the awakening of the timeline. All of us knowing that the timeline, the 5D timeline is open and available. That's really what they mean, the angels mean about the second coming of Christ, that we are realizing we're Christed inside. I was Mary Magdalene.
Oh my God. Can you
Mm-hmm.
tell us about that, please? Hey, everyone, and welcome back to the Shifting Dimensions podcast, where we explore the unseen, the unknown, and the transformative moments that shift our understanding of reality. I'm your host, Jumi Moses, spiritual seeker and metaphysical investigator, exploring the mysteries of existence. On the show today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Rachel Corpus. Rachel is an angel in human form, here to teach and embody a life deeply connected to Source. Born with the ability to see and feel beyond the physical, like angels singing above her crib when she was younger, Rachel's gifts only grew stronger after multiple near death experiences. Today, as a professional channel, she works with angels, ascended masters, loved ones in spirit, and high vibrational extraterrestrials. Her mission? To help others remember their divinity, awaken their gifts, and evolve into their highest selves. Rachel, welcome to Shifting Dimensions. It's such a pleasure to have you here on the show.
Same. I'm so happy to be here. I was just telling you a moment ago, it's really nice to sit with you because as an angel, one of the one of the gifts I was given to, I think, actually delight me in my lifetimes, because this can be a hard life as an angel. I get to have my past life memories or my other lifetime memories with me. I remember all of them, and you're in there with me. I've known you before, and I just love to see you again.
Wow, I'm so captivated by that. Of course, that's going to open a gamut of questions. And it's interesting that you say that because I had a reading with someone before looking into my Akashic records, and they said that I'm from the angelic realm. And I remember
Yes.
thinking, interesting. I don't fully know what that means. So having you here on the show, literally an hour before, I that conversation came back to my frame of mind, and I was like, if I'm really from the angelic realm, I wonder
I'll
if
know it.
Rachel is going to recognize me
Yes, I do.
as one of really. So,
Mhm.
could you selfishly, I have to ask this question, could you give more insight into the experiences we've had together in other lives?
Mhm.
And, I'd love to know
I don't
more.
think it's a selfish question at all, because anything that is brought up to us in this setting is going to help so many people
Yeah.
who will resonate with us, with this idea, honestly. And of course, it's going to help you and help me. But don't you find that in our, I have a podcast too that is really precious to me. And I find that sometimes I get these ideas that feel like they're for me. And every time I talk about them, I have so many people say, "Oh, I needed that." So I just
Mm.
have learned to go with it, right?
Yeah.
But what I am being shown is that this was brought to you piece by piece. You had that first healer tell you that from the Akashic records. Then you processed it with your ego. Oh, that can't be true. I can't be an angel, right? You had that process through. And then before we came on to the recording together, you remembered it again. That was your angels, because you have, even though you are from the angelic realm, you have two angels with you that are assigned to you, your guardians, that every time you incarnate, They walk with you to keep you on track. So they nudged you to say, hey, don't forget what you know. Ask about that today. My guardian said the same thing. Hey, we're going to pull that lifetime where you know Jumi so you can talk about that. So here we are. So, what I know to be true about us is that you're from the level of dominions. And the level of dominions, you are the writers, write like write down notebook, and you create the rules. And it's not the rules like you must do this, you must do that. No, it's the ethics system, like the golden rule. And you create the Torah. You were there when the Bible was being written, granted 500 years after the action happened. You were there to stand in solidarity with the people who were trying their best to write it. You were there when all the books were left out. You were there when the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered and when people were deciding, do we include this? Oh, we're not brave enough. We're going to hide it in the Vatican or wherever it is. You're one of the angels from the level of dominions. You are here on earth because you were either asked to be or you chose to be, because there are so many people trying to figure out, where do we stand with these ethical rules? Where do we personally stand, and where do we stand as a collective of souls as we navigate what is right for us as a collective? Where do we stand with what our ego tells us, and where do we stand with what our God self tells us, and how do we rectify what's right? So you're from that realm, and it is a very it sounds serious, but it's a very playful realm because it all comes from love.
I'm extremely mind blown right now because there've been a few synchronicities in the last couple of weeks, and I would say months, this year in general, where this idea of me writing more has been coming up. I actually had an astrologer on the show. She specialized in Vedic astrology, which is very
Mm-hmm.
different to Western astrology. And she looked at my chart, which was my sun sign, for example, was different from my sun sign in the Western chart. But the point I'm trying to make here is she kept emphasizing that you need to write. You're meant to be a writer. And I'm like, me,
Yes.
a writer? What, like, where's that coming from? And then I've been getting these intuitive nudges, even when it comes to like manifestation practices, where like your way of manifesting is by writing down, like scripting it, like literally
Mm-hmm.
write out your story. And I recently just started a 9 to 5 job where I was drawn to it because they are focused on ethics and compliance. So everything that you're saying right now is just so in line with the nudges that I've been getting and very fascinating. And even the part where you said that when this healer told me that you're from the angelic realm, I am very fascinated by metaphysics. I believe in angels. I love angels. I get a lot of angel numbers. I feel very connected to the angel archetype, right? Especially from a place of like seeking peace. And I feel like I had an angel appear to me when I was younger, but I definitely did process it through my ego, where I was like, I don't really
Yes.
I'm from the angelic realm, sure. Like, whatever that means, right? Like, of course, I would love to claim that. And that's what I was telling myself. Like, of course, I'd love to claim that I'm from the angelic realm, but like, I don't
So am
know if
I.
I know who
Yeah.
am I, right? I don't know if I fully believe that. So I'm very, again, shocked in a good way by everything that you just said. And I know that you said I'm from the
Yeah.
Dominion
Level of dominions.
level of dominions. So are there different levels in the angelic realm?
Yes. They're all equal, but you can visualize them like a building where you would go to the elevator and you would see how they are marked. You go to this level, it's the seraphim, the dominions, just because you want to know what level you want to go to, because that's where they're housed, but one is not greater than the other.
Okay. They're kind of
Yeah.
like different levels, but from a, is it like a lateral, horizontal perspective, not from
Yes,
like
it's their
a,
neighborhoods. Yes,
okay.
they really are neighborhoods and it's all equal. And at any time, you or I could decide we want to hang out with the cherubim. We want to hang out. I as a seraphim, I want to go hang out with the dominions because what they do is interesting work. You might want to go with me in the seraphim because I'm where the new souls are. And there's a lot to learn there. I actually go to the level of dominion a lot. That's how I know you, because if I know more about the golden rule, doesn't that serve me well with the unborn children? Yes. I can't wait to teach them all about that as we play before they're born.
So can you tell us a little bit more about your level, right? We kind of heard a little bit about what the dominions do. What do the seraphims do? What is your goal? What is your mission?
The seraphim level, I'm going to tell you that there's a lot that goes on the seraphim level that I don't know because my specific job is my specific job. And what I do there is I love to play with the children and prepare them to be born. Or if there's something that happens in their birth process, they are miscarried or they're aborted, then I take care of them when they come back. And so there's other things that happen there. I don't know what that is. That's just my job. And so there's a lot of planning with their ancestors and their specific angel team about what do they want their work ethic to be like? What's their humor? Do they want to be runners or swimmers? Do they want to be good at math? It's all that. Where do they want to live? What's their Vedic astrology? What's their Western astrology? So I am part of their team, one of many that's part of their team. And all of the levels, all the angelic levels, they can either be a physical dimension. So I can be in my angelic body that can be very much like this, except I typically have longer hair and better skin. Or I can look like a seraphim, which is a wheel of eyes. There's an old spiritual Ezekiel saw the wheel way up in the middle of the sky. That's seraphim. Or it can be just energy. We can be just energy, and all of the dimensions are just an energetic space. So it depends. Sometimes people will have dreams of the angelic realm and it's just color. So in the seraphim realm, sometimes when I go there, it's a nursery. And I can go down these beautiful marble halls, and to my right, it's a nursery with all the angels attending because when a baby is in his or her mama's stomach, the spirit isn't in there the whole time. The spirit is still in the heavenly realm for quite a bit of time, working with the ancestors and the angels until the first breath of life. This is why when we're pregnant, we don't always feel the kicking. So the spirit's over there. And so much can happen in that 9 months. And then to the other side, there are meadows and places to play because the babies are playing over there. And then there are offices, there's administrative offices, and then there are our lockers and where we hang out as angels, and then there are living spaces for the angels. And then it's quite silly because we're all spirit, we don't actually need those places, it's all energy. It really just depends on what kind of experience we're having that day.
It's so fascinating that you're saying all of this, right? Because I've been saying this for a long time that I feel like the other side, and that could encompass so many different things. There's so many different dimensions, so many different layers. But I always say that that side feels is probably more real than this current existence.
Yes, this is a dream. This is a holograph. We're all in our avatars right here. This is the learning space. The heaven space, the quantum space, that is the reality. We're all real over there. When I'm in the seraphim realm and I'm helping to prepare the beautiful babies, we're preparing high level developed souls, prepare their avatars to come over. So they're not babies, not at all. They're high level souls. They can be from they're all from all other planets, and they come to that seraphim as a like a waiting room. So they're choosing their eye color, they're choosing their everything about their body, their spirit, but they're not human. Nobody's human. they go to the seraphim realm to prepare their life, but that is the real place. All the planets, including Earth, we're here in avatar. You're an avatar right now. I'm an avatar. And we're in holographic form, but you're correct. That's the real place because it's closest to the God source. The closer we are to the God source, the closer we are to reality,
Mm.
because the closer we are to love.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, the part where you said when you were talking about like what the seraphims do, and of course it's related to souls kind of planning, sounds like it's related to souls planning the life that they want, right? Before they enter as a baby. It reminded me of this movie that I watched a few years ago by Disney called Soul. And I don't know if you've ever
Yes.
watched that movie, but I feel like if you're listening to this episode right now and you're trying to get a metaphor of what Rachel is talking about, I highly recommend that movie because it sounds similar to kind of what you're describing. Um,
Second that. And also, the movie Inside Out will help you understand the personality of seraphim and angels, because even though those characters in Inside Out that portrayed the inner workings of the child's mind, even though those weren't angels, they do act like angels. They act
okay.
like our spirit guides. So I would recommend that movie as well, Inside Out.
Right.
Right.
So there are a couple of other things that you mentioned. You mentioned the golden rule, right, as it pertains to the dominions. And I kind of want to touch on what the golden rule is.
Yes. The golden rule: treat others as if you wish to be treated. But the first part of that, treat others as if you wish to be treated, we really have to think about how do you want to be treated? And it's part of my mission that I was given as an angel to help people remember how they want to be treated. And it's not from an ego place. It's really the golden rule is actually treat others as if they are God. Treat others as if you are God. Treat others as God. It's been translated in so many ways because we've pulled in a layer of ego into the golden rule. We say treat others as you want to be treated. We've turned it into feed them, give them a sandwich, be kind to them. And all those are correct. But really, when we do it correctly, we're treating others as if they are the God spirit, because we're all God. We are not separate from God. And humans tend to know that to some degree, but the disconnect comes from lifetimes of being taught the I can't say that, the lesson.
Indoctrinated, yes.
Yes, thank you. The idea that we need a go between us and God, an authority figure, a priest, a pastor, a book, a song. We need something in between us to get to God, or worthiness. We need worthiness to get to God. But in fact, there is nothing between us. There's no divide between us and God. Sometimes there's a temporary energy to God, divide between us and God, like a thought or a sin, but God really doesn't go anywhere. God's always there waiting for us. And it's not religious God, because religious God is made by man. This is spirit God, total love God. So the golden rule is treating others like they are God, because there is no other. Jumi, you and I are really the same person. When we were in the heavenly realm, we had the same DNA. We had the same love DNA. We had the same light and love flowing through us. And we would play dress up. And you would wear your angel costume, and I would wear my angel costume. And then God would say, but you know, you're the same to me. And then when we decided to have a life, we had so much fun deciding, well, what do you want your hair to look like? What do I want my hair to look like? What do you want your avatar to look like? So much fun. But we're all the same. So the golden rule helps us get back to that remembrance of oneness.
When I was younger, my favorite motto was treat others as you would treat yourself. That was just something that I resonated with so much. And that would be something that I was slow to anger, but the things that would really piss me off is when I felt like someone was treating me in a way that they wouldn't treat themselves. And that would
Yes.
irritate me and cause like a fuse to go off. Not all the time, but those were the things that would really get to me. So thank you for sharing that because I just want to make sure
Yeah.
that people understand what the golden rule is since you talked about it a few times.
Good. And it's probably the first thing we learned as angels
Mm,
way back. It's probably one of our first lessons. I needed to go back to something. It's slightly off topic from what we're talking about now, but
okay.
my angels are my guardians are reminding me that in the seraphim realm, it's not just newborn babies because we can have souls come in that's called soul sharing. So we can have adult bodies that there can be a soul that crosses over and another soul can come into that body. And that can also happen from the seraphim realm. Have you heard of such a thing?
Yes. I heard about it a couple years ago. I was having a conversation with my sister and she told me the story because she knows I'm into these things. And she said, Jumi, I was talking to a guy earlier. Maybe I don't know if he was a stranger or a friend. He was in his 20s, and he said that he's not the same person he was when for like the first 20 years of his life, that his
Yes.
soul was switched out. And I thought
Soul
that
swap.
soul swap, and that blew my mind. And about a year ago, I was on a live with someone I had on the show who was interviewing someone, and she said that I think she was in some sort of train accident, almost in some sort of train accident when she was on the railroad. And she noticed that another soul had entered her body. And there was a moment where both were in her and then one crossed over. And then it was like this new
Yes.
person. And I just was like, that is so fascinating and probably extremely disorienting. Why does that happen? What is the purpose of that?
It happens because there's an agreement between the two souls where one soul is simply done with their life. They have completed everything on their blueprint, but their family on earth is not meant to grieve them. And there's another soul on the other side that is ready to come in and learn. And so that soul has an agreement with the soul that's dying to upload all of their memories and emotions and DNA, physical, so they take over. So one soul crosses over and begins the healing and transition process, becomes a guide for the new soul. And then there is a soul swap. So no one on earth knows, unless they're an infant or a pet, they would pick up on it probably, or someone really psychic. But for the most part, no one on earth can pick up on that. And even the person who has soul swapped will forget after a week or so. Um, so the people that are in an interview and they know that they've soul swapped, those are very unique people who will retain that memory. It's just simply a loving agreement that they have agreed to before they were born with another, we'll call them a twin flame or a soulmate. And so that death experience is registered as a near death experience or a death experience. And instead of a complete death experience, there's a swap. Animals do it all the time.
That is so intriguing. And for some reason, it's bringing up this idea. Now we're kind of going on to a tangent. I'll bring us back to the angel topic at some point.
So, right?
Um,
It's fun.
I love tangents. I love going
Yeah,
down
me
rabbit
too.
holes. It kind of brings me back. It's, it's bringing up this question in my mind about NPCs
Mhm.
for some
Yep.
reason. There's been a lot of talk about that. And for the people who are listening, and please, Rachel, jump in if I don't explain it properly. NPCs are basically human beings that,
Mhm.
from what I understand, don't have a soul.
Hmm.
Is that correct?
Yes and no.
Okay.
They have souls, but they have signed a sacred agreement that in this lifetime, they are holding the foundation for us. So they have signed up not to grow. They're
Mm,
doing a little bit of growth, but their growth is happening with their higher selves on the other side. What they have decided to do is that as our fifth dimension timeline grows and widens so that we can awaken, the NPCs, um, what they're doing is they're like the control group. They're the ones that are waking up, going to work, eat, sleep, poop, go to sleep, do it again. They have souls, but they're the sleepers. And so what they're doing is they're giving us just like a very benign beige background to so the rest of us can grow fast.
okay. So
They
would
don't
it
get in the way. They just give us the foundation. And so when they cross over, they will either grow significantly on the other side, like they're doing now, but it's their higher selves that are doing it, or they will reincarnate as infants or soul swap, and they'll then join the timeline in that way.
okay. Okay, that makes sense. So I guess that's why my brain went there because I guess what I'm trying to ask is are NPCs because they're like they have a soul, but in many ways they're sleeping. They're not as aware, right? So I don't want to say that
Right.
they're robotic because they're human beings.
They kind of
But
are robotic, though. They kind of are, and they can get possessed easily.
okay, because so is it better, is it more accurate to say that NPCs, because people make a they distinguish between a soul and a spirit.
Right.
Have you heard that being distinguished? And I struggle sometimes to kind of figure out why they're distinguished. I think the spirit is the bucket of water, and the soul is a drop from the bucket of water. That's how people have described it, right? So and I guess the spirit is the God spark, right? So is it safe to say that the NPCs, quote unquote, they have a soul because they're part of a larger spirit, but they don't have that like divine spark in them that would facilitate growth in this three-dimensional plane? Does that
Yes,
make
they don't have
sense?
the awareness.
They don't have
Yes.
the awareness.
The
Okay.
awareness. Okay.
So
So,
going back to what I was saying, I guess they would be more prone to, I guess, having a new spirit come in or being possessed. Is that an accurate understanding?
they would be more prone to have a possession because that
Mm,
would be something predatory that could happen to them versus an agreement. If they
okay.
were to have a soul swap, that would be an agreement that would either happen pre birth or it would happen if they were high or if they got signed up to do something like ayahuasca, or if they had something that registered as a spiritual awakening, near death experience, um, something really traumatic like loss of a child, something like that. If they had something that really rattled them, then sure, then that would start their growth chart in a different way. It's possible, sure,
Hmm.
anything's possible. Because again, this isn't real. We're here to learn. So they could reroute their chart because they do have guardian angels.
Hmm.
Every being and everything actually here has a guardian angel. Even my pen has an angel for it, has a worker angel. So yes, anything's possible. But what surprised me in the last couple of years was I was calling them background people because of my spirit. One of my spirit guides was Dolores Cannon, and she refers to them as background people. And to me, in my ego, what that meant was, well, they're just here doing their thing, eat, sleep, poop. Then she corrected me and she said that from her interactions with them on the other side, they told her, oh no, we have souls. We took a very sacred vow to do this for the greater good. And that surprised the heck out of me because I really thought that they were just kind of in a video game, beep, beep, boop, boop. And no, that's not it at all. They're here for a really great purpose. And so, yeah, there are people that go from in their life, go from background person to spiritual seeker. It's not common, but yeah, that's the best I know about it.
I'm really happy that you explain them as having a soul because when I would hear people talk about NPCs and describing them as background people, I struggled with that because to me, it felt like they were saying that they're not real people. And I thought that could easily become problematic. So I felt like there was something missing in the holistic understanding of quote unquote what an NPC person is. And this is not meant to be like insulting or anything because they have souls and stuff. They're just not
Mm.
evolving or awake the way a lot of people are. And the thing is, most we're at some point we're all asleep, right? And some of us have an idea of this is all a facade and we kind of go on that journey. We have that intuitive knowing from when we're young, but there's so many moments where I thought I was awake and then I wake up again and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't even realize like I was sleeping through this part of my
Yes.
consciousness."
Well, what if the background people are so highly evolved
Mm,
that this is their lifetime, that they're they have time to take a nap?
mm,
That's my wondering. And I I get a little flutter in my heart when I think of it that way, that what if they are so high evolved, they have time for us to take a break? Like, what if we're the ones that are behind? What if it's me that's behind? And that's a different perspective. And I kind of like it.
yeah. I like that perspective as well. But when you think about the work that Dolores Cannon has done, and you think about some of the stuff that David Icke talks about, I don't know if you're into his work. He has pretty staunch beliefs around
Yeah.
reincarnation and why we're
Yes.
here. When you think about that, you can kind of see how the NPC thing comes about, right? Because if this is some sort of a video game and a holographic system,
Mhm.
then in those systems as well, we have players that are not as conscious, right? They're not as
Yes.
aware. They're awake, they're alive, but their consciousness has not, they're not awake to all the different dimensions of consciousness and information that they have access to that kind of goes more into the metaphysics, and
Mhm.
leads to spiritual evolution, which is part of what a lot of people are here to experience.
Mhm.
So, with that being said, I guess to kind of conclude on the whole soul swap thing, it usually mostly happens to more conscious individuals. It's not a situation where it's usually NPCs that happens to.
Correct. Correct. Because the conscious individuals have made an agreement to do it and they can handle it.
Okay. So, this is a very important question that a lot of listeners are probably thinking, well, how did Rachel know that she was part of the angelic realm? Can you
Great
walk us through
question.
your story and how did you discover that?
Yes. Well, when I was an infant and toddler, 3, 4 years old, those really young years in my life, I have memories of being able to see people who had died, playing with ghost children, and seeing angels because I was raised Catholic. And so angels to me looked like biblical angels with wings and halos. And I could hear what animals were thinking. And I know a lot of people who are listening were psychic children as well. But when I was 4, my parents were in a car accident. My family was in a car accident, and I had a near death experience. And so those angels that I was used to seeing, they came to the car and they took me out of my body and we went to heaven. And they took me to what I know now is the seraphim realm. And they said, "You are from here." I had two voices. So they were around me, but I also had two voices in my head. One I was used to, it was my 4-year-old internal monologue. But there was another voice. It's this Rachel voice, grown up voice. And I asked them what that was. And they said, "It's you, it's your consciousness." Side note, I've thought about this a lot. I think I know that because I had my consciousness with me, it's why I remember that near death experience so much. think if I was just 4, I would remember bits and pieces of it, but it's a solid memory. Even the mosaic tiling in heaven, I remember it all so well because I was in my consciousness. But they took me to back to heaven and they gave me a tour that I was seeing kind of for the first time, but also remembering. It was a very surreal feeling. And they said, do you remember? This is where you're from. This is your home. You are one of us. And they showed me my workspace. They showed me the nursery. They showed me the meadows. They showed me the shoes I wear, all of it. And they were saying some things to me like, we don't have much time. Your head has been hurt. You have some brain damage. They'll be able to repair it, but we've got to work fast. And they told me about my mission. And my mission was what we spoke about before. And they said that I can do my mission from anywhere. I could do it from there, or I could go back to Earth. And then I didn't make a choice. I remembered my mom. And as soon as I remembered my mom, I was that 4-year-old again, and I didn't want to make her sad. So then I was back on Earth just like that. And I was back in the hospital. And when I came back, for a short time, my gifts were greatly amplified. I could put my hand through the wall. I could move things with my mind. And it was scary, honestly. And I could see all realms of spirit. I could see what things that really scared me. Um, and I could see angels that were full of light, would hurt my eyes actually. But then that all died down and things got back to normal. I was also playing with extraterrestrials at that point. That began where they would come into my backyard and take me into their ship and walk me around and say, it's time for you to be friends with us as well. That all began at that time. But that's how I knew that I was an angel. And since then, throughout my life, I've had more near death experiences, out of body experiences. The out of body experiences have been purposeful, where I've astral traveled or I've done transcendental meditation, because I really wanted to go there without having to die or partially die. And I've been successful with that. But in my blueprint and my soul map, there are times written in there where, I partially died. And that's how I went back for some meetings. But it hasn't always been that way. I can go back for council meetings in my sleep. I do that often. Or when I'm feeling homesick, I will astral project. I'm not very good at that, honestly, but I can transcendental meditate, and that's very lovely. And so I'll find myself, if I found a way to click into the vibration like a phone call and go that way. And also, I trust myself more, that I feel like I'm not making it all up. I'm sure people listening have gone through that phase where you think, come on, I'm no angel. I'm not that. I'm not worthy enough. And that's too, that's, that's too detailed. I made that up. I'm through all that, helping people, working with people and bringing their loved ones in and their angels. Thankfully, I've been able to work through that, 20 years ago. So now I can get in there pretty easily. So that's how I know.
Such a fascinating story. And, to touch on the last part, I think when you have these psychic abilities, you've had these experiences, it's important to kind of trust yourself and trust what's happening. And I think a lot of people, I'll even speak for myself, I struggle with believing some intuitive nudges, or when people tell me certain things that seem true, I can easily talk myself out of it, like we talked about at the beginning. But I think when you step into not caring what anybody else thinks and kind of step into that power, the more your gifts and your path continues to open up for you. I also think it's very interesting that you said that when you had this near death experience that you talked about, your first one at 4 years old, you were able to remember a lot of it because that your consciousness, which I call the observer,
Yes.
isn't a 4 year old. And it's when you said that, I remember my first memory was when I was 1 years old, and my parents are having a huge birthday party for me. I think my dad was holding my hand, and I just kind of like noticed all this activity around me, but it wasn't from the perspective of a 1 year old. I feel like
Mm.
that consciousness, that observer that
Mhm.
observed what was happening at one is the same observer that's with me now, and they have not aged, right? It wasn't a
Yes, that's right.
young-minded person um observing that. So when you said that, I was like, yes, that makes a lot of sense, right? Because someone could say like, you're 4 years old, how could you explain all of those things or understand all of those things? But of course you can, because it's your consciousness, is that observer that isn't
Yes,
your 4 year old self that is aware
yes.
of what's going on. So I wanted to touch on that.
Thank you.
Yeah. There was something else I wanted to say too. It's, with your path, you've had a couple of near-death experiences. That was part of your soul blueprint. Is that frustrating for you? And I ask because people have asked, because I talk about these things all the time. They're like, have you had a near-death experience? I'm like, no, and I don't want to have one at all. If I'm supposed to know something about myself on the other side, I'd rather not have that experience. So you've had quite a few. How do you feel about that? Are you kind of frustrated that that's part of your blueprint, or are you kind of used to
Hmm.
it?
Well, I know I won't have any more, and I'm glad about that. And one of the reasons why I won't have any more is because I'm not an alcoholic anymore. One of them I brought on myself. So I know that. So, our blueprints are a mix between what we craft out before we're born. And then when we get here, our free will choices. So some of it I was creating myself. So my frustration, I've got to own that I did that thing. So my healing has rerouted my blueprint, and I'm really proud of that. So there's that. Um, and so, yeah, there's some frustration there. And then also, my, I guess there's also frustration I have with the realm about how, for some of us in our blueprint, there's trauma that opens up our gifts, because for other people their gifts come without trauma. But what I've been told from my specific angels is the people that I was designed to work with to help open up their gifts, that's just how they're opening up. So what my blueprint reflects is I got to go through traumatic experiences, hence near death experiences was one of them, part of that. In addition to some alcoholism, abuse, divorce, just some other hard things. Because had I not gone through those things, I wouldn't be able to understand the people that would match with me and how their gifts were coming open, because I wouldn't understand their trauma. So specifically, that's why I experienced my opening up in the way I did. Now, if I incarnate again on another planet, Earth or not, I probably will not have near death experiences. That won't be my story, because I will already have it in my DNA, my spirit DNA. I can pull on it from there, but I haven't had near death experiences in my other incarnations. It's not in there.
I'm so glad that you brought up your other incarnations, because I was going to ask you, I know that you said part of your gifts is the remembrance of your past lives.
Mhm.
So, how many times have you incarnated on Earth? Do you remember I'm sure you do, your other incarnations on different planets? What was your experience? I know this is a big question. What was your
Okay.
experience? What incarnation do you prefer the most? And why do you keep incarnating into a physical body?
This is my seventh incarnation on Earth. So not many on Earth. I don't love I don't love being on Earth, because it's where all of the low vibrational stuff is, and it can be very taxing on me. But there are things about Earth that I love. I love art. I love music. I love to eat. We can eat on other planets, but there's just some things here, like fried food is so good, cheesecake. I mean, there's just some things that don't exist other places. I love sex. There's just some things that's like Earth is great. Um, yeah, and I love to sing. I love what the human body can do. I love singing. I love sleeping. There are some great things about Earth, and I love having children. I love being a mother. And there are some other planets where you don't reproduce. I love that aspect of Earth. Other planets where I've been, the lessons you learn are more about moving energy, or which is also a lesson we have here, but it's a different way to move energy. Other places, it's more about instant manifestation, or it's about thinking of something and growing it from growing a resource. It's about sharing resources or growing resources for other galaxies. It's very specific. And I love those places. I really do. It's kind of like a Hawaii life, other things to learn. And
Yeah.
it's very much about going there to learn about your sacred system, coming closer to God. Lovely places. And there are places you go that are just about service. You go there to serve. I like those planets because it's very much about community or sisterhood or brotherhood, depending on what your incarnation feels like, more male or female or neutral. So I'm not on Earth very often. And the incarnations that I've been here have been, let's say, dense, busy,
Intense. Um,
historic.
yeah. So I guess, does your mission, you coming from the angel realm, and angels are very, what I understand, service oriented. Do you have a mission in all of these incarnations? Is it the same mission or does it kind of
The
change?
same.
It's the same.
It
Okay.
tends to be the same. The details will change according to history, where we are in history, but it's typically the same to help everyone remember that they are not separate from God and that they
Okay.
are made of love. Mhm.
Okay. All right. That's good to know. I mean, honestly, and I think a lot of people can relate to this, whether they're from the angelic realm or not, but I can only speak for myself. And I'm getting to this point, and this is not from a, I hope it's not coming from a self-righteous place, but I feel like I've always kind of struggled with being in this physical existence because I feel limited. And it started from limited in the way of thinking and feeling like there were things I wanted to talk about that nobody thought to even care about. Now we're in a space where I feel like the things I like to talk about, which I'm having these conversations here on the podcast, more and more people are open to talking about it. And I actually run into people in my day-to-day life that I can have these conversations with. But in general, sometimes I get frustrated being in this incarnation. And I'm not talking from a place where I'm ready to leave this incarnation, absolutely not. But when I see the divide in the discourse and I can kind of see that we're being played like puppets and people not realizing what's going on, it gets frustrating. And I always make this joke like, why was I born? Like, why would I choose to come here? Do you ever, I know you've had a lot of incarnations by now. Do you ever feel that way where you're just kind of like, this is the last lifetime where I'm trying to come down here to help these people elevate their consciousness and find their way back to source?
Sure, I get frustrated. Um, Something that makes it a little easier for me is I can see the scope of my first incarnate, if we look at it in a linear way, which doesn't really work when they're all piled together, but when I allow myself to do that, I can compare the first time I was here and how people were compared to this lifetime, and it's vastly different. And this is the incarnation where people will really understand that they are not limited. This will be the one. Now, it doesn't mean that everyone will be on board, but the ones who are ready to be aware will be aware. So there is an incarnation where we were starting from scratch, and it wasn't the first one. He was in the middle. The first one, everyone was wide open, and it was great. And then it started to decline. Um, it started to open, and then then we declined. People started to forget, and then we started to awaken again. So we're in the reawakening. And that middle lifetime was actually when I was here with Jesus.
How was that?
How
Were
was that?
you, did you have a friendship with Jesus? Did you talk to Jesus? What was that like? Or you just observed what was going on with
No,
him?
I was there. I was Mary Magdalene.
Oh my God. Can you
Mm-hmm.
tell us about that, please?
Well, one thing that people are not aware of is that all the statues in the Catholic churches are not Mother Mary. It's Mary Magdalene holding Jesus's baby.
Okay. We need to pause on that for a second because everyone's going to be mind blown. This is the first time I'm hearing that. How is that? How
Well,
is that?
people think that when they make the statue that they're making Mother Mary. So a
Mm-hmm,
lot of them have the energy of Mother Mary because people are praying to Mary at those statues.
mm-hmm.
But really, when you see a statue of Mary holding a baby, that's Jesus's wife. We were married.
I've heard, I'm not surprised by the marriage because a lot of people have come out, a lot of historians, a lot of people who do extensive research into this have come out to say that Jesus was in a relationship with Mary Magdalene. She just wasn't a follower. That's why he was so, even in the Bible, he had so much care for her. But what is so
I was
fascinating is,
very
mm,
spiritual, and very much a follower. But I
mm,
would also, if somebody was being unethical or hurting someone, I would kick the ground. I would
wow,
cause a dust storm. Yeah, quite literally, I would rebel. And I was not a prostitute. I had fun, but I was not a prostitute, which I think people know by now.
yeah,
That's that's been revealed. But yeah, Jesus, and we had many children,
I've heard that too. I've heard that Jesus had many
and the
children.
line is still alive.
Mm.
Jesus is our children are still on earth.
You know, I guess what is, from your perspective, right? Since you remember that past life, what about Jesus's teachings do people misunderstand the most?
Well, they looked at them from a place of ego, and they looked at them like, what can I get from this personally? How does this affect my life, instead of how does it affect the greater good? And so that was one thing. The other thing is his teachings were, it's like telephone. There are so many people that I remember my husband would talk to, that they would hear what he would say and be so excited about it that when they would go home and tell their friends and their families, it would change slightly, and then it would keep changing and keep changing. And there were political leaders that were for him initially, but then their leaders would say, okay, you can say this as long as you change this line, but that line would be so significant that his messages would get changed. So we were always fighting this battle to keep the messages with fidelity.
Mm,
And he's not a fighter. His opinion, he's listening to me right now, his opinion would be, let the spirit come through. Let the spirit come through. And I would always say, no, go in, fix it, fix it, fix it. He said, no, no, no. The spirit will come through. And it did. Look, it's still coming through. He's right.
right next to you.
That was hard. That was hard. I always wanted to go in and edit people and say, no, that's not what he meant. That's not what he meant. And that's why I got a bad reputation, because I was always the squeaky wheel. And they didn't like women to be the squeaky wheel. And he was peace. I was agitator.
Mm. So, what would you say to people who are listening to this right now and they're like, how can you tell that that you were actually Mary Magdalene in a past life versus being able to kind of transport yourself to see what she experienced? Because I know that sometimes people are able to tap into someone else's experience, even though
Yes.
it might not be their actual past life. So how could you distinguish between both the two?
Well, that is hard because I can't prove it, right? It's where faith comes in. But you know the difference between being hungry for something and remembering that you ate it? That is the difference. I am not longing to be Mary Magdalene. I have scars that
Mm,
came through in my body. I have strawberry marks where she had stretch marks. I have, and here's a proof. This is going to be weird, but if you look at the skull of Mary Magdalene, she had tooth issues, and specifically in her front teeth. If you look at her skull, there's two elongated pieces of her teeth that go up. I have them on my teeth. Just to give you one example of why, of one of the things that could prove it, if you want proof, and it's going to
mm-hmm.
be weird, but I'm going to show you my
Oh
teeth.
wow.
They go up right
Mm-hmm.
here.
Oh wow. Okay, yeah, I see that.
So there's
Yeah.
one thing, but I think more than that, I have all of her memories,
Mm,
all of them. And it's not like I have to close my eyes to think of them. They're all there. So if I turn my head, turn my body this way, I go into that library and I remember every time Jesus and I kissed.
mm,
I remember every time we said, "Kids, time for dinner." Remember every time he had to leave because he had work. I remember everything. And so it's not like I go into a meditation to go there. No, friend. It's right. It's here. It's with me. Like this. It's with me. I wrap up in it. It's a memory like what I had for breakfast yesterday. I don't think, gosh, I'm hungry for a yogurt. No, the yogurt is still digesting in my belly.
mm-hmm.
And it's still part of my physical form. I still have it. Still
Yeah.
in my teeth. And she had her teeth knocked out before she died. I had my teeth knocked out before I died because they were loose, always loose and rotten. It was not very healthy. And these are always loose, always. And then I have to like say to my angels, tighten them, please. And it'll take a couple of days to tighten.
Wow. You know, and I asked that question because I always try to think for my listeners and even for myself too, right? Because for
Good to
me,
be the stick.
yes, yes, of course, because it's important to actually have not shy away from those questions because
Yes.
anybody could say anything, right? Um,
Yes.
I think I
And
want to
they
go,
do.
yes, and they do. And a lot of people do say anything. So it's important to kind of maintain the integrity of the space and our conversation and everything, which I'm extremely mind blown. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm very fascinated by it. And two questions, and I'm going to ask them at the same time just so I don't forget in case you remember so you can remind me. So the first one is I definitely want to go back to the statues and how that was historically misinterpreted if it was Mary Magdalene and Jesus's baby, Jesus's child. And then the
Mm-hmm.
second question is people talk about the second coming of Jesus Christ. Is Jesus Christ as a spirit, as a soul, as a being, as a sovereign entity, have they had multiple incarnations? Was that the only incarnation? What realm? Is Jesus also from the angelic realm? If you have any insights on that, that would be amazing to learn.
Sure. So the statue, as far as I know, the statues were created of Mother Mary by the Catholic Church to revere Mother Mary, but also because when Jesus was alive, there were a bunch of psychic children just like Jesus and just like me. But when the Bible was being written, all of the information about the psychic children and the power of women and what they could do, because a lot of the psychic children were female, that was not included in the Bible. But when the Catholic Church was creating their version of the story, they still needed a way to keep women in the Bible. And Mary's story being the vessel of how Jesus got here, um, being a virgin and not wanting to soil the image of Jesus by making love to a man and giving birth to a boy, to a person. they wanted to create that moment that everyone could pray for a miracle. So they created a statue of Mother Mary. But in fact, what the angels have in mind is, let's create a blessing for the sanctity of family. Family is the miracle. Togetherness is the miracle. And so, really, when the first statue was made, there is a visitation from my spirit, Mary Magdalene, and Mother Mary, my mother in law, and Jesus that came down and said, every statue created is my, Jesus said, my love, Magdalene, and my child, our firstborn child, who we call James. So really every statue, it's a Mary statue. And so if people want to think of it as our mama, my mother-in-law, Mary, so be it. Beautiful. Holding Jesus, that's beautiful. But really the spirit inside is me, Mary Magdalene, holding our first, James. It's mind-blowing. And when I was a little baby, little one, growing up into 4 years old, when I would go to mass, I would see Mother Mary kneeling down and playing with the baby. And I would ask her, who is this? And she would say, it's my Mary. There's a little more proof for you. She didn't say it's me. She would say, it's my Mary.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Just so
And then when I got a
fascinating.
little older, she'd say, you know who that is. It's you. But it was too much for me when I was little for her to say, it's you. I'd say, no, it's me. It's me. I'm in my first communion dress. But it's not me. When I got older, she would say, you know, it's you.
How did it feel when you found out that when you tapped into that past life?
It felt right. Like
Mm.
finally, my angels will let me know that this story is valid. Mary is letting me know, and finally Jesus is letting me know, because there were times when I was in high school that I would feel love thoughts for Jesus, and I thought, oh, that's wrong. Not lust, but romantic love, and I would shut that down right away. That's blasphemy. And again, it wasn't lust, but it wasn't, yeah, it was like marriage love, and I wasn't creating it. It would come to me. And I thought, what the heck is that? So when I fully came to know that lifetime and every single detail, and then Jesus said, that's real, my love. Relief, absolute relief.
Mm. So, to the question about Jesus having other incarnations, or if you know what realm he originated from, would love to hear if you have any insight on that.
He's from the angelic realm,
Mm.
and he is from a very specific part of the angelic realm that's the not like a, you're from dominions, I'm from seraphim. He's not from any of those layers. He's from the right hand of God. He's from the
Mm.
God layer.
Okay.
So he is son of God, and he resonates with the God frequency. And so when he was asked to incarnate, he created with God the avatar, the human avatar, for the purpose of helping people understand that they are God with skin on. He was teaching people how to understand God, because at that time they were killing things to please God. They thought they had to, with sacrifices and stuff. So he was helping people understand and not rewrite, but rewrite that path. So his other incarnations have been that same story throughout history, where he's helping people understand you don't have to have bloodshed to know God. You don't have to hurt yourself or others to know God. So he has had several incarnations, but some of them have been short. And he often does that through soul sharing. Like his
Mm.
soul sharing will be maybe for a year or two, and then that soul will come back again. And he'll soul share with angels on earth. He'll soul share with animals. He often comes as an observer. So sometimes he doesn't even incarnate into a body. He will hover. So he has come to earth a lot. The second coming, it's not a religious coming like the end of the world. it is the second coming through all of us. So as we remember that we are God inside, that is the second coming of Jesus. And it's really the awakening of the timeline. All of us knowing that the timeline, the 5D timeline is open and available. That's really what they mean, the angels mean about the second coming of Christ, that we are realizing we're Christed inside.
So it's that like heaven on earth piece that people
Yes.
are talking about and reawakening Christ consciousness. And I did want to ask about that, but before we go there, so when you say Jesus is the right hand of God, right? That's how Jesus often is portrayed and, understood to be. When we're talking about God, people have described God as the one, which encompasses every single thing. People have described God as a man who sits on a throne. People have described God as the universe. So when you say Jesus is from, the plane of the God realm, I want to fully understand what that means, right? Because we've talked about the fact that we all have the spark of God in us. We're all gods. I've heard that many, many times. So what does it mean to be on the God realm and how are you explaining God? Like what is your definition of God?
I've never seen God as a person. I've never been shown that. Although I've heard people who have had near death experiences seeing God personified. So I know God can show up to people in a way that makes sense. When I go to the God realm, it is everywhere. So it's not, I'm not saying it in a very good way because it makes it sound like you go to a place and there is God. Actually, God is everywhere. When I go to where the different levels of angels are, there is a sense of God there at a certain place. So I can leave the seraphim realm and ask to be with God, and there's a glowing light that's loving and golden like beach sunlight, and it's not a light that we have here. And then when we say God is at the right hand, it's a figure of speech, meaning that when the God spirit is wanting or needing to incarnate so that we can better understand, Jesus is right there. And on the other side is John the Baptist, who helps Jesus or will prepare us sometimes. If someone is not spiritual or religious, Johnny will go and show up in a through a different type of music or something. Will go and prepare the way for Jesus and for God. So Johnny's up there too. But the God source seems to be everywhere and in all different forms, in the form of a desk or a flower or Jesus. So yeah, I don't really see God as I've not seen God as a person or even in a certain place in heaven, but everywhere. And also, if it would serve me best to go to a room and sit with God, I'm sure that could happen.
Okay. And when you talked about the Johnny, is that a metaphor for being the
John the Baptist.
John the Baptist? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So he sits on that realm with Jesus as well.
Yeah, they're always together.
Mm. This is
Always.
Yeah. So it's these conversations which I this is what I love about these conversations, but this is also what I guess can be hard about these conversations because the more you talk about these things, the more ineffable they are because it's almost kind of like you have to talk in gibberish almost because it's words cannot fully explain everything. So sometimes when we're talking and using English as a language to describe these things, it
Yeah.
adds separation and layers, right? But everything kind
Mhm.
of melds together. There's really no separation. And even though we're talking about different realms and some might be higher or lateral to each other, everything sort of coalesces together in many ways, but that's hard to fully explain. I just want to make that disclaimer, but all of this is extremely fascinating, right? Because Jesus is one of the most important historical figures in the entire world, especially as it pertains to religion and spirituality. And some have said that Jesus is an ascended master. Do you
Yes.
agree with? Okay, so are all ascended
Mhm.
masters in that God realm that you're talking about, or it doesn't really matter, it
Mhm.
just depends on their
Doesn't
mission?
matter
Okay.
wherever they want to be. They're all over the place.
hmm And
Mhm.
do we in this 3D realm, when we pray, can do we have access to that God realm? Like I know we pray
Yes.
to God. Okay.
Mhm.
We
Yes.
do.
We have
Okay.
access to anyone and everything in the realm because we're all equal there. And again, we're in avatar form, but this is all a holograph.
hmm
Mhm.
Okay, now let's talk a little bit about the new earth. Um,
Okay.
because we touched on it, heaven on earth. And I remember when this idea was first brought to me, it was from my theology teacher in high school. And they were talking about heaven and, heaven versus hell. And he was saying that heaven is between your ears. And as a 14 or 16-year-old, I don't remember how old I was, I was a teenager. I just remember thinking, what the heck does that even mean?
What are you
Um,
talking about? Yeah.
what are you talking about, brother? Um, but now I have a better understanding of it, and it falls into two camps. Some people say it's a physical new earth where everything is just bliss, and that physical earth is layered on top of the earth that people who still want to struggle in. Other people just say it's a state of mind. So I want to hear from you what the new earth is. Are we shifting that way, and how do you envision it?
What I've been shown is that we are on New Earth already. New Earth has been presented to us in 2012. We can think of it maybe as a timeline. And if we call, maybe for the sake of conversation, we could call New Earth the 5D timeline. And the 3D timeline also remains, but it is fading away. And the 3D timeline, those who still resonate with the 3D timeline, they can be on that as long as it serves them. And that's not a punishment. It just is. It's neutral. It's neutral. On the 3D timeline, it will always create a home for struggle, hunger, low vibrational stuff. And that's what Earth has been used to. In 2012, the 5D timeline was presented, it opened up. And so people who are on a spiritual path or an enlightened path, they joined the 5D timeline, whether they knew it or not. And that 5D timeline, they'll become more aware of it the more spiritual they become. So let's say you bite your cheek, you'll revert back to the 3D timeline for a few moments. Let's say you're experiencing a month of poverty. You're going to experience the 3D, but you're still on the 5D. And the less you experience of the 3D, the more you'll realize, oh, I am in 5D because the 3D is dying. And the people who are not able to get out of struggle mode, they will not be able to sense the 5D until they die. And the background people we talked about, they are either going to just be on the 3D till they die, or they're going to be on the 5D and they just don't know it. But really, the 5D is what's taken over. And it's not two Earths, or we're not waiting for a 5D, it's already present. We're in the middle part where both are happening at once, and we're just waiting for one to get done with itself. When this was first happening, what we thought in the realm was that this was going to take a few generations for the 3D to fade out. Actually, there are so many people who are resonating well with the 5D timeline and want it so much that it's sped up and time has pretty much gone away. We are seeing people manifest instantly like they do on other star planets. We're seeing people, physical bodies remember how to heal themselves. We're seeing an integration of traditional and holistic medicine. We're seeing people be kind to each other again. We're seeing people have a great disdain for war and not see it as a business model so much anymore. Seeing great changes. And because of those changes, and that's just some of the examples, because of those, we're seeing the 5D earth or the new earth resonate, sing, dance, move. Because of that, it looks like in this generation, in the next, between now and the next 30 years, we're going to witness the 5D or the new earth become our greatest reality. It's changed. The timeline has changed.
I resonate wholeheartedly with everything that you're saying because I do believe that the 3D and the 5D are happening at the same time. I
Mhm.
literally can see it. You know, I can see it in how people are reacting to things, especially on social media. Social media is a great medium to kind of see how the 3D and the
Mhm.
5D are overlapping, and it's so fascinating. Um, it really, really is fascinating because I'm like, oh my gosh, you can kind of see who is tapping into that new earth frequency, heaven on earth. People more and more talking about breaking out of the matrix, which is this 9 to 5 grind, and
Yes.
realizing that living life that way just doesn't make sense. We're not machines. We're not supposed to operate
Right.
that way. So a lot of people are waking up to that, waking up to their authentic code. And a lot of people are going against the grain because you're kind of taught and indoctrinated into the rat race, and it's
Mhm.
scary to pull yourself out of that. But a lot of people are like, wait a minute, I'm just like running on a hamster wheel. And
Mhm.
maybe there is a reality where I don't have to, excuse my language, work my ass off
Yep.
in order to exist as a
That's
person.
right. That's right. That's
So,
right.
yeah, I,
And the 5D timeline, the way it looks is actually like a big fat cable cord.
mm,
And in that cable cord, it's made of threads, and each thread is a soul. And if I pick out a soul and I just look at that thread, if I look at that soul, every soul has its own interpretation or its own reflection of the 5D. So
mm-hmm,
if I just pick up my own thread for a moment, I can realize that when I have a bad day, it no longer affects the whole 5D timeline because since I'm on that 5D timeline, that's not entirely true. Let me back up.
okay,
If I have a bad day
mm-hmm,
and I say, fuck, I had a bad day, pardon my language, fuck, I had a bad day. This is the worst world in the whole universe. That's going to ripple through the 5D timeline, okay? Everybody's going to feel it. But if I say, this was a bad day, tomorrow will be better, but I'm going to allow myself to feel my bad day. Okay? I'm not going to ignore my feelings, but I'm going to handle them responsibly. Then the 5D timeline ripples with love. We're being responsible about our feelings now. I'm noticing that with people. People are not ignoring their feelings, but they're handling them with kindness and love. That's a significant change, but I'm seeing that the 5D is like a big cable cord and it's made of everybody. It's so cool to see. And then this 3D timeline is also made of cords. And when people are like deflecting from the 5D over to 3D over to the 5D, it's so cool. These threads keep migrating. It's beautiful. And this 5D will go from multicolored cords to gold. It'll turn to gold throughout the day. I don't know what that means,
mm.
but I can see it. Pretty.
It's very beautiful. It's so beautiful. And I love what you said about people are allowing themselves to feel their emotions without this like fear, shame, guilt, just mental
Yeah.
torture that comes with it. And honestly, I've made that shift over the last couple of months. When negative emotions come up, I realized that I was exerting so much energy trying to fight it away, being irritated, like, why is this here? And I'm just like, this is here. It is what it
Yeah.
is.
Because when we weren't doing that, it either was freezing the timeline or it was affecting the timeline negatively. And now, since enough of us are being responsible and loving about it, it's healing the timeline. It's creating the timeline. It's really beautiful.
Very beautiful. We're all waking up in droves. I'm excited to kind of see where things head in the future, because with AI now, there's this talk about what it means to be a human being.
Mhm.
Does AI have consciousness? So it's going to be very interesting to kind of see how AI plays a role in
Mhm.
how we continue to evolve into the 5D, or stay in that 3D frequency or potentially regress. I hope we do not regress, but I'm very fascinated about like this whole idea of transhumanism, right? Because they're trying to put chips in us and all of these different things. So it's an emerging space, which is also very, very fascinating. So thank you for I don't know if you were going to add something else to that. I didn't
No,
mean to
I
cut you
was
off.
just agreeing out loud.
Yeah, okay. Perfect. Thank you for sharing your thoughts on that. I know we started off with you and I talking about um, me being part of the angelic realm, and I wanted to ask this question, but we went into a very amazing tangent. And I'm just curious to know, how many incarnations have we had together, and do we work together, or do you kind of show up in my life to remind me that I am from the same realm that you're in, that you're coming
Or
from?
vice versa. It's possible that you show up to remind me
Mm,
we are equals.
yeah.
Let me ask that question for us. How many times have we been together in an incarnation? Let me see. Impossible to count, they said. Impossible to count. Now,
Wow.
I want to give a different answer or a different question. I want to ask them. So, when I asked that question, all the energy scooped out and went this way because there are so many lifetimes. I'm going to ask how many are resonating in a way that we can still feel. There's four. There are four lifetimes that are still playing, like movies or records
Mm,
or albums that we can. So there's four significant ones that are still in play right now with you and I, and three of them that I can feel are on different planets.
okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Super fascinating. Super
When I
cool.
say that stuff out loud, I just have to say that I feel bonkers.
This is the world we live in. And honestly, too, like
Oh,
every single time I have conversations with people on the show, I'm like, oh wow, that sounds really out there. But the thing
it's
about it is the stuff that's out there is so real, and we know that and we experience that. And I'm in a space where I'm gonna own that, right?
me
There's these
too. It's my
these
calling,
Yeah, exactly. We
and
can't
God wants me
prove
to be brave.
exactly. We can't prove everything, and we're not trying to prove everything, right? I structure this podcast in a way where I want people to think for themselves, but I will bring the information and you take with it what you will. But ultimately, the goal is to spread hope, love, and, you know, curiosity. That's the most important thing, right? Um,
Yes.
so this has been a fantastic conversation. I knew we were going to talk about angels, but I had no idea that this is where the conversation was going to go. Before I start a show, I always set the intention or say a prayer that I pray that I ask the best questions, and I pray that my guest comes with their A game, with the, amazing
Mhm.
answers. But I would have never imagined that it was going to go down this way, and it's better than I could have hoped for. So thank you so much. I
My
always
pleasure.
ask I always ask my guests for, have they shifted in perspective on anything recently? I call the podcast Shifting Dimensions because I feel like we're constantly shifting our perception of things and how we see things. So I want to know, have you shifted in anything recently? If not, you can always share final words of wisdom. That also works.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked me that. Personally, I have begun to be more realistic with how I share my time with people, and I've decided that from a purely loving place, I don't have to be friends with everybody. Yeah, that's been hard, but I'm being strong about it.
Wow,
Praise Jesus.
we're here today. We're seeing eye to eye today because I resonate with that as well. I'm still on my journey. I don't think I'm as brave as you, but kind of realizing that not everyone deserves my energy. I don't have to be nice to everyone. So thank you for sharing that.
Hard.
Very hard. Okay, where can people find you if they want to connect with you, if they want to get a reading or just learn more about you?
Well, I have a podcast that I'm pretty proud of, and it's called Angel Talk. And it is on the mindbodyspirit.fm network or wherever people get their podcasts. Also, I have a website, and it's my name, Rachel Corpus, like Corpus Christi, Texas. That's how you spell my last name, rachelcorpus.com. And I'm on Facebook and Instagram. And yeah, people can get a hold of me there for a session, or I teach classes once in a while. Yeah, easiest way. I'd love to hear from people.
Awesome. I'm going to leave all those links in the show notes. Rachel, it has
Thank
been
you.
an absolute pleasure, Angel Sister,
Same.
speaking with you
Same.
today. Thank you for
Love
stopping by
it.
the show.
Take care.